If you were in my situation, you would be spending your entire life raising your child, paying hundreds of thousands of dollars in tuition fees, buying a $12,000 wedding dress, and covering a luxury banquet at a grand hotel. And then, on the very wedding day, your daughter looks straight into your eyes and says, "Dad, I'm sorry, but you're not invited. Please go home." In front of hundreds of elegant guests, you are thrown out of the very party you paid for. People whisper, some even raise their phones to record the humiliating moment of you walking away. But the story did not end there. 2 hours later, the entire dream wedding collapsed. Flowers were cleared, meals left unfinished, guests bewildered, and then behind it all, a father had taught his daughter a lesson she would never forget. Ingratitude comes with a price. What would you do in this situation? I am that father who was treated this way by his daughter. Before we begin, please subscribe to the channel and leave a comment so I know where you are listening from. I am deeply grateful, and now I will continue with my story. The sound of violins echoed through the grand hall of the Palmer House Hilton, where crystal chandeliers poured down like waterfalls of light. Guests leisurely raised their champagne glasses, stepping across gleaming marble tiles. The scent of orchids imported from Florida mingled with expensive perfumes, making the air so luxurious it was suffocating. I, Robert Miller, stood at the doorway of the wedding hall, still clutching the silver-wrapped gift box. The box was not large, but inside was the pearl necklace my wife, Sarah, Sophia's mother, had treasured. I thought that today, even if I was not wealthy, at least I could give my daughter the most precious thing left from our family. But Sophia, in her white wedding gown worth $12,000, turned and looked at me. Her face froze instantly, and the smile for her guests vanished. "Dad, what are you doing here?" Her voice was tense, pitched higher. The entire hall fell silent for a few beats. The chatter stopped. Dozens of eyes turned toward me like spotlights catching an intruder. I forced a gentle smile, keeping my tone warm and friendly. I just wanted to say, "Congratulations, today is your big day?" Ethan Carter, the groom, strode beside Sophia, his tailored tuxedo hugging his tall frame. His smile did not hide the chill. "Mr. Miller, I think there's been a mistake. This event is for close family only." Sophia could not look at me, her mother's green eyes darting away. She took a deep breath and spoke, soft but loud enough to carry through the hall. "Dad, I'm sorry, but you're not on the guest list. You should leave." That sentence slammed into my chest like a block of ice. I heard whispers behind me. Oh my God, did she just throw out her own father on her wedding day? Unbelievable. Some even pulled out their phones to secretly record video. Each click stabbed deeper into me. I placed the gift box on the decoration table beside the sparkling champagne glass and the vase of white orchids. My hand trembled, but my voice stayed calm. "I don't want to cause trouble. I just hope you'll be happy." Sophia bit her lip. Ethan wrapped his arm around her waist, casting me a cold glance before turning to the guests. "Apologies, everyone. Just a minor incident. Let's continue." The orchestra played again, but it could not drown the murmurs. I turned to leave, my old leather shoes heavy on the polished stone floor. With each step farther, faint chuckles felt sharper. Outside, the March wind of Chicago cut like a knife. The hotel parking lot was packed with gleaming Mercedes, BMWs, and Cadillacs. In the far corner, my rusty Ford F-150 sat like an outcast, just like me in that world. I opened the door, sat down, but did not start the engine right away. My phone buzzed. On the screen appeared a message from the bank. Reminder, transaction $25,000 for Palmer House Hilton, pending confirmation. That was the money I had prepaid for this wedding banquet. Every flower arrangement, every musician, the fine dining menu, all from my account. Even the wedding dress Sophia wore came from me withdrawing my retirement fund. Yet in the end, I was cast out of the very wedding I had paid for. Not only rejected, but I was also ridiculed before hundreds of strangers. In that moment, I felt it clearly. This was not just coldness from a daughter. This was outright betrayal, carefully staged. I drew a long breath. My hand rested on the steering wheel, but my mind was no longer on driving home. Instead, I recalled the hotline of First Midwest Bank. I remembered that every single wedding contract, from hotel, catering, to floral services, had been paid through my business account. The phone buzzed again. Another message from the bank. Please confirm the transaction. $15,000. Elegant Affairs Catering. My fingers clenched tighter. A different resolve rose inside me. If my daughter thought I was nothing more than a wallet to withdraw from, then it was time she learned what consequences meant. The old truck engine growled to life, harsh and rough, unlike the elegant music echoing in the ballroom behind me. I turned out of the lot, merging into the heavy stream of cars on State Street. But instead of going home, I headed straight to the bank, where I could change the entire course of that wedding. On the passenger seat, the pearl gift box lay quietly. I knew no one in that ballroom would open it to remember Sarah, but that only made it clearer. From this moment on, I had not only lost a daughter, I had lost the illusion that love and sacrifice could ever be repaid with gratitude. In Chicago, people say, "Money talks, money has its voice," and this afternoon I would let it speak, not to indulge anyone, but to bring justice back to myself. First Midwest Bank on LaSalle Street was not far from the Palmer House Hilton. The tall glass tower reflected the hurried crowds of downtown Chicago. Inside, fluorescent lights gleamed over the counters, the smell of roasted coffee drifting from a machine in the corner. I, Robert Miller, walked in, suit still neat, though my tie had slipped after the humiliating ceremony. The old security guard nodded, likely recognizing me, a loyal business client for more than 20 years. At the premium customer desk, a young associate looked up, offering a polite smile. "Good afternoon, Mr. Miller. How can I assist you today?" I set a small notebook on the counter. It was my expense log listing every payment I had made for Sophia's wedding. Hotel, flowers, catering, music, even the wedding gown. The numbers stretched down the page, totaling more than $140,000. Nearly my entire retirement savings accumulated over a lifetime. I want to cancel every single payment tied to the wedding, happening this afternoon at the Palmer House Hilton. All of it, I said, calm but firm. The young woman hesitated, blinking quickly. "Sir, these charges have already been approved in the system. Are you sure you want to stop them now? Many services are already in progress." "Exactly why I want to stop," I said, locking eyes with her. "I am the account holder. Every contract is under my name. From this moment, I authorize no further charges. I want the bank to issue a stop payment immediately." Banking language sounded cold, but inside me raged a storm. The image of Sophia in her white dress, coldly dismissing me in front of hundreds of guests, twisted like a blade. If she saw me as nothing but a walking credit card, then fine. I would shut that card down in the middle of their big day. The associate's fingers flew across the keyboard. The screen lit up with green lines. Venue rental. Palmer House. Hilton. $25,000. Catering. Elegant Affairs. $15,000. Floral design. Bellingham Blooms. $8,700. String quartet service. $4,500. Photography. Package. $12,000. The list went on. I pointed to each entry. "All of it. Freeze them now. I want a signed confirmation with transaction codes." The atmosphere around the counter tightened. A middle-aged manager approached, his steps precise. "Mr. Miller, I'm David, branch director. Are you certain you want to proceed? Rejected vendor payments will cause disruption, even lawsuits." I drew a deep breath, my voice steady. I was excluded from the very wedding I paid for. None of them has any right to spend my money anymore. If the vendors want payment, let them demand it directly from my daughter and her husband. As for me, It ends here. David studied me for a few seconds, as if weighing a lifetime in that moment. Then he nodded. Very clear. I'll have the payments stopped immediately. Each keystroke was like unplugging a cord from that lavish banquet. I pictured white orchids being taken down, the music silenced, catering staff pulling trays away while guests still held their forks. Part of me ached, knowing Sophia would panic, humiliated, but another part felt fairness. Fairness for 25 years of sacrifice dismissed as nothing. David printed a stack of forms and handed them over. Here is the cancellation receipt. All transactions are flagged with stop payment in the ACH system. If vendors wish to continue, someone else must guarantee them. I signed, every stroke a declaration. From today, I was no longer a blind provider. As I stepped out of the bank, the Chicago afternoon sun filtered between skyscrapers. The wind was still sharp, but inside me was a strange warmth. For the first time in years, I felt I had control of my fate. The phone in my pocket buzzed non-stop. Unknown numbers, then Sophia's, then Ethan's. I didn't answer. I wanted them to face the consequences before hundreds of guests, before the cameras that had secretly captured me being rejected earlier. I imagined those videos flooding social media. Father thrown out of daughter's wedding, and moments later, vendors shut everything down. A humiliation spreading publicly, beyond the family, into the community. But this time, I was not the one suffering it. On the passenger seat, the pearl box shimmered in the light. I brushed the silver wrapping. Sarah would be saddened to know Sophia had become this way, but I believed she would agree. It was time for our daughter to taste the bitterness of ingratitude. I started the truck, merging into rush hour traffic. Horns blared, lights flashed red and amber, yet in the chaos I felt a rare calm. I knew from this moment that the wedding would no longer be Sophia's fairy tale. It would become the costliest lesson of her life, and I was the one who flipped the switch to begin it. At exactly 6 p.m., when the chandeliers in the ballroom blazed their brightest, the chaos began. At first, just odd whispers near the service area. Hot trays are not delivered on time, and catering staff are changing shifts with no replacements. Guests glanced at each other, murmuring. A side door swung open. Marcus, manager of Elegant Affairs Catering, strode in, two staff behind him, faces tight. He carried a clipboard, heading straight for the buffet line where silver trays waited to be unveiled. Without hesitation, Marcus pulled the covers over, then slammed the lids shut. The metallic clang cut across the ballroom, used to nothing but soothing violins. A guest frowned. "What's going on?" Sophia rushed forward, her pristine gown swaying, her heavily made-up face forcing a brittle smile. "Excuse me, what are you doing? We are in the middle of service." Marcus raised his head, his voice loud and clear, carrying without a microphone. "Ma'am, the payment has been canceled. Per contract, we are required to halt service immediately." The hall froze. Whispers swelled like waves. Guests pulled out their phones, quickly recording the scene. "Impossible!" Sophia burst out, her voice trembling. "Everything was paid for weeks ago." Marcus looked straight at her and replied coldly, "Your father, Mr. Robert Miller, issued a stop payment this afternoon. No money, no service. I'm sorry." The grand ballroom suddenly grew heavy. Voices overlapped. "Isn't he the man they threw out earlier?" My God, the father paid for everything and still wasn't invited? Sophia stood frozen, her wedding bouquet trembling in her hands. Her eyes dropped to the floor, then darted around the room, where hundreds of stares pierced her, some pitying, some mocking, some even gloating. At that moment, the main doors swung open again. A team from Bellingham Blooms, the floral decorators, rushed in carrying giant plastic bins. "Apologies, we are here to collect all the white orchids. Payment was canceled. Merchandise must be retrieved." The lead woman's voice was firm. Then they began stripping vases, pulling orchid garlands from the columns. Petals scattered across marble floors, stems snapping with sharp cracks in the silence. Sophia screamed, "No! This is my wedding! You can't just take everything away." The woman looked up, her eyes like steel. "No money, no service. The contract is clear." Ethan Carter, the groom, pushed forward, his face flushed red, his voice harsh. "What kind of farce is this? You can't humiliate us like this." The woman coolly held up the contract. Clause 5. When a payment is canceled, we are required to retrieve it immediately. This is business, sir. From a corner, a guest chuckled. Are they repossessing the wedding? The laughter spread like fire. And under the blazing chandeliers, dozens of phones pointed straight at Sophia and Ethan. The music stopped abruptly. The musicians laid down their instruments. Microphones, speakers, spotlights, all shut off at once. Everything sparkling about the reception vanished in minutes. Sophia trembled in the center of the hall. Her white gown was still dazzling, but her eyes blurred with mascara. Beside her, Ethan clenched his teeth, muttering low but loud enough for those nearby. Your father just ruined us. My family will never forget this. Sophia shook her head, tears streaking down her cheeks. No, this can't be happening, Guess whispered. She threw out her own father, and now karma hits her right in front of everyone. Can you blame him? A father is not just a walking wallet. Camera flashes burst. The first clips were surely already hitting the internet. Chicago wedding in chaos. Father stops payments. Vendors walk out mid-reception. Within less than an hour, the clip reached more than 5,000 shares. Comments poured in like a flood. Serves her right. She threw out her father and still expected him to pay? Cruel, but fair. What father could endure being treated that way by his own child? I pressed my lips tightly. I didn't need to say a word. Social media would do the rest. In the ballroom, Sophia collapsed to her knees on the floor, her bouquet shattered, her shoulders trembling. She kept calling me, my name flashing again and again on the screen, but I didn't pick up. I let the phone ring, letting her taste the feeling of abandonment, the same feeling she had handed me just hours earlier. The room that had once been a shining dream now looked like a battlefield in ruins. And I knew this was only the beginning. That night, as Chicago sank into the golden glow of streetlights along the river, I sat alone in my small Oak Park home. The sound of trains from Union Station rumbled in the distance, mingling with the horns from the 0290 highway. I thought I would finally sleep in peace. After all, justice had spoken right in the middle of the wedding. But then the phone on my kitchen table buzzed nonstop. No longer just missed calls and messages from Sophia. These were notifications from Facebook, LinkedIn, and even work emails. I opened them. The screen lit up with a long post from Sophia, paired with a photo of her in the wedding gown streaked with mascara. The first line stabbed me in the chest. My wedding day was supposed to be the happiest day of my life, but my father destroyed it all. He stopped payments, forcing vendors to take away flowers and food, leaving us humiliated. I don't understand how a father could be so cruel. Below, hundreds of comments streamed in. Unbelievable? A father did that to his daughter on her wedding day? Too cruel. Maybe he has mental issues. This is revenge, not love. My heart tightened. I knew Sophia was skilled at twisting words, but I didn't expect her to rally public opinion this quickly. Ethan was surely behind it. The tone wasn't hers. It was cold, calculated like a PR campaign. The next morning, when I arrived at the office of Miller & Sons Construction, the atmosphere had changed. Dave, my foreman, approached with hesitation. Boss, have you seen the paper this morning? I shook my head. Dave handed me the Chicago Tribune. Right there in the community news section was a short article. Oak Park businessman accused of sabotaging daughter's wedding. Witnesses state Robert Miller called the bank to cancel all payments during the reception, causing tens of thousands of dollars in damages and ruining a major social event. My eyes froze on the last line. Some guests suspect Mr. Miller has struggled with mental stability after years of widowhood. The words felt colder than the March wind. The office phone rang. It was Bob Martinez, longtime partner and owner of a concrete company in Joliet. Robert, I just saw the news. What's going on? People are saying you lost control and wrecked your daughter's wedding in the middle of it. Bob, you know me. My entire life, I've worked with principals, but they're not telling the whole story. I believe you, but other contractors may not. You know how fragile reputation is in this business. The call ended, but I knew inside. The wave of public opinion was gathering. That afternoon, my neighbor came by. Mrs. Linda, she lived right across the street, shook her head as soon as she saw me. Robert, I'm truly shocked. Sophia just posted another video. She's crying, saying you never loved her, that you only controlled her with money. Hundreds in the Oak Park community group are sharing it. People are calling you petty, a man who used money to shame his daughter. I stood frozen. The image of Sophia crying small in that video, surely filmed by Ethan, had painted me as the villain to neighbors, relatives, and friends. I heard kids pedaling bikes past, one blurting out, "That's Mr. Miller, the guy who ruined his daughter's wedding." Their laughter stabbed like pins. Night fell. I sat alone in my study, the desk lamp casting long shadows. On the screen, social media overflowed with lines. Father turns wedding into hell. The price of control. Poor Sophia. Old high school friends even messaged, "Robert, is it true? Are you okay?" I understood then. This was the counterattack Sophia and Ethan had launched. If my stop payment humiliated them for hours, their social media war painted me as a monster to the whole community. I, the man who had sacrificed nearly everything for his child, was now branded the father who destroyed his daughter's happiness. In that moment, I felt it sharply. Rock bottom wasn't being thrown out of the wedding. It was watching my honor, 30 years of reputation, dragged through the mud in public. My fists clenched. Part of me wanted to speak out immediately, post the bank receipts, every invoice to prove myself. But another voice whispered, "Not yet. Let them drown deeper in their fake power. When the truth comes out, the fall will hurt twice as much." I closed the laptop and looked out the window. Chicago lights glittered, but inside me was only darkness. I knew I had just stepped into a new spiral, the spiral Sophia and Ethan had started, armed with the weapon called public opinion. And I swore one day that same public opinion would turn like a sword and cut the liars instead. On Sunday morning, the cold Chicago sun streamed through the window of my small first-floor office. I sat at the oak desk I'd kept for more than 20 years, its 3 metal drawers filled not with gold, but with receipts, invoices, contracts, every piece of proof of my 25 years as a single father. I opened the first drawer, a thick folder labeled Sophia Education. Tuition receipts from St. Mary's Catholic Elementary School are $8,000 per year. Bills from Trinity Private High School, rising to $12,000 per year. I flipped through each one, remembering nights I worked extra shifts just to pay on time. I pulled a sheet of paper and began writing. Elementary school, $40,000. High school, $48,000. University, Northwestern, $52,000 per year. X 4 years, $208,000. Dorm, books, living expenses, $15,000 per year. X 4, $60,000. Exchange program in Italy, 1 semester, $12,000. Total, just for education, $368,000. I asked myself, in those 25 years, how many times did Sophia stop to say, "Thank you, Dad"? The second drawer, transportation. First car, a Honda Civic at $16,800. 6 months later, she complained that all her friends drove BMWs. I bit my tongue and bought a BMW 320i, $28,000. At 25, after meeting Ethan, she wanted an SUV, a BMW X3, $44,000. 3 cars, not counting insurance, registration, and maintenance. Total, more than $100,000. I added it to the list. cold numbers on paper, but to me, each one was a sleepless night. A construction site that went until 3 a.m., a back aching from scaffolds. The third drawer of lifestyle and housing. Lincoln Park apartment, $2,800 per month for 3 years after college, for a total of $100,800. Credit card debt under my name that I paid off when Sophia overspent, about $25,000. Cancun trip with friends for networking, $3,500. Spas, designer clothes, the latest iPhones estimated at $50,000. Total, $179,300. I pressed the pen hard. The total cost of raising Sophia to this day, more than $650,000. And that did not include today's wedding, another nearly $140,000. The total, close to $800,000. A number so cold it made my skin crawl. A number that anyone could see was not controlled, and certainly not cruel. It was love. It was a sacrifice. That afternoon I met with Margaret Richards, the attorney I had known since the early days of my company. Her office sat on the 15th floor of a granite tower near Daley Plaza. When I laid out the entire file across her glass desk, she looked at me for a long time before saying slowly, "Robert, you don't just have evidence. You have a story. This isn't revenge. This is accountability." She flipped through each invoice, tapping her pen on the numbers. "If needed, I can draft a demand letter right now, an official legal notice, sent directly to Sophia and Ethan. It would request repayment of all the expenses you covered, backed by receipts and documentation. If they refuse, we can proceed with a civil lawsuit." I hesitated. "I don't want to sue my own daughter, Margaret. I just want the public to know the truth. I want them to stop seeing me as a madman who ruined the wedding." Margaret nodded. "Then we do both. Send the demand letter to prove you have legal grounds. At the same time, prepare a public record, the 25-year expense chart, every invoice, every figure. When you show that, the public won't believe Sophia's half-story anymore." Her eyes hardened. "Robert, remember this. They chose social media as their weapon. Then transparency will be your sword." That night, back home, I opened my laptop. On the Excel sheet, I typed every number, every cost. The final line read, education, $368,000. Transportation, $100,000. Housing and lifestyle, $179,300. Wedding, $140,000. Total, $787,300. I printed it and bound it into folders. Looking at the thick stack of paper, I felt both exhausted and strangely at peace. For years I had lived as a walking wallet. Now I held proof. I was not insane, not cruel. I was simply too loving, and that love had been twisted into a burden, even smeared as a crime. As I labeled the final folder, I whispered, "All right, Sophia. If you want to make your father public, then public it will be, but it will be the whole truth." That night, Chicago froze again. I sat by the window, watching headlights glide along the street. Inside me was no longer only pain. It was preparation. It was resolved. Sophia and Ethan might believe they had won with flowery words online, but when these papers surfaced, everything would turn, because no one can deny the truth, and truth is always stronger than lies. Monday morning, just as I poured my coffee, the phone rang. On the line was Margaret Richards, my attorney. "Robert, I've finished the demand letter. Today it goes by express courier to the hotel where Sophia and Ethan are staying. They will receive it this evening. I want you ready, because after that, the calls will come." I nodded, gazing through the misted window. Calm and heavy at once, I knew that in just hours my daughter would face, for the first time in her life, the real bill for the luxury she had always taken for granted. At 3 p.m., at the Four Seasons Hotel, suite on the 18th floor, Sophia received a thick envelope sealed in red. Ethan tore it open, eyes scanning the pages. With every line, his face grew paler. Sophia, do you realize what this is? Sophia hesitated. It's just another scare tactic from Dad. He's always been controlling. Ethan slammed the papers onto the glass table. A scare tactic? This is an official demand letter, Sophia. It requires repayment of $787,300 within 30 days. Every invoice, every receipt, and every bank signature. This is no joke. Sophia's hand shook as she grabbed it, her eyes darting over the figures. 368,000 for education, 100,000 for cars, 179,300 for housing and lifestyle, 140,000 for the wedding. Each number struck like a hammer, weighing down her chest. No, it can't be. I never saw that as a debt. That was his responsibility, wasn't it? Ethan's voice was cold. Don't be naive. A father's duty doesn't mean writing nearly $800,000 blank for an ungrateful child. Sophia, your father just turned love into legal documentation, and now we're trapped. Within an hour, my phone buzzed nonstop. Sophia called. I ignored it. Ethan called. I ignored it too. Then messages flooded the screen. Dad, how could you do this? I'm your daughter. Robert, you're destroying your own reputation. If you don't stop, we will go public with everything. I sat in my study, the warm lamp glow falling over the files. I gave no reply. I wanted them to know. This time, their father was no longer a walking wallet, but I had guessed right. Sophia and Ethan would not stay silent. That evening, Facebook exploded with a new post from Sophia. A photo of her by the hotel window, eyes red, with bold text above, "My father is suing me for nearly $1 million, after he once promised, I will always take care of you. Now he's turned love into debt, trying to destroy my marriage." Shares climbed by the minute. Comments flooded in. Insane. What kind of father sues his daughter? He must be mentally ill. Stay strong, Sophia, we're with you. I stared at the screen. The insults poured onto me mercilessly. The consequences came fast. The next morning, when I walked into the office, Rachel, my assistant, looked pale. Boss, you need to see this. She laid out a printout from the Chicago Business Journal. Headline across the page. Oak Park businessman faces accusations of suing daughter right after wedding. Community questions. Is Robert Miller breaking down mentally? I exhaled heavily. The storm Sophia unleashed had now reached the business press, the very world where I had built my name for 3 decades. That same morning, I took 3 calls from partners. Robert, this could hurt your credibility. We need assurance that your company is stable. Are you sure you're in control of the situation? Each question cut deeper than a knife into my pride. That afternoon, when I came home, neighbors stood clustered outside. They didn't greet me as usual. Mrs. Linda, who once often brought pies, glanced at me, shook her head, and whispered to the person beside her. I caught fragments. What kind of father demands money from his daughter? He's lost his humanity. I hurried inside, closing the door. Leaning against the wall, I drew a long breath. This was the rock bottom I had predicted. Social isolation. Not only losing my daughter, but I am also slowly losing the community around me. That night, I sat at my desk, the lamp flickering in the wind. I opened the file again. Cold numbers did not comfort me. I remembered Sophia as a little girl, calling me Super Dad, hugging me tight after every school performance. And now she painted me as a monster in the eyes of the entire city. I took a sip of whiskey, the burning taste sliding down my throat, but instead of making me drunk, it made me sharper. I whispered to myself, fine. If they want a public battle, I won't hide anymore. Truth will be my weapon. In my mind, I already saw the next step, releasing the entire file to the public. Not just a few sheets, but a full report. Transparent, clear, undeniable. They had cornered me, and when driven this far, I had only one choice: fight back. Wednesday morning, Chicago's skies were gray, clouds hanging low over the towers. I arrived early at the Richards and Associates law office. In my hand was a brown leather briefcase, not filled with business contracts, but with 25 years of fatherhood, translated into the language of banks and receipts. Margaret had already scheduled with reporters from the Chicago Tribune, the Business Journal, and 2 local TV stations. We had no choice left. The truth had to go public. The 15th floor conference room was blazing with light. Microphones crowded the table. Journalists checked recorders, and camera lenses pointed directly at the seat reserved for me. When I walked in, the clicks of dozens of cameras filled the air. I sat down, placed the briefcase on the table, and drew a deep breath. In that moment, I was no longer just a grieving father. I was a businessman with truth to defend. Margaret opened briefly, her voice firm. She introduced me and slid the thick folder forward. I stood, opened the case, and laid out the clearly labeled folders. Education, transportation, housing, lifestyle, wedding. Each held invoices, receipts, and contracts. I am Robert Miller. Over 25 years, I have spent nearly $800,000 raising my daughter, Sophia Miller. This is not empty talk. These are receipts, invoices, and bank statements, all verified. I raised the education folder. The room went silent. Slowly, I opened it to reveal tuition bills from St. Mary's, Trinity, and Northwestern University. This is $368,000 for education. Every payment came from my account. I dropped the papers onto the table, the sound echoing through the room. Next was transportation. 3 cars totaling over $100,000. A Honda Civic, then a BMW 320i, then a BMW X3. Not one was paid by Sophia herself. I moved on through housing, lifestyle, and finally wedding. An apartment in Lincoln Park, $2,800 per month for 3 years. I covered a credit card debt of $25,000. Trips to Cancun, Italy, spas, and shopping. And most recently, the wedding at the Palmer House Hilton. I withdrew $140,000 from my retirement account to cover it. And the result? I was thrown out of the wedding and smeared publicly. Flashbulbs exploded. Some reporters nodded to each other. Margaret handed out summaries, with the final number highlighted, $787,300. My voice lowered, but I spoke slowly so every word would sink in. I did not call this press conference to demand money. I did it for my honor. My daughter and her husband painted me as a villain online, but the truth is here, in black and white. No one can deny it. A reporter asked, "Mr. Miller, many believe canceling payments during the reception was cruel. What do you say?" I looked straight into the camera. Cruel? Cruel is when a father spends his life providing and is cast out on his daughter's wedding day. I simply stopped. I didn't destroy anything. I just stopped paying. Is it wrong for a father to stop sacrificing for those who no longer see him as family? The room fell quiet for several beats. Reporters scribbled furiously. Another asked, "Aren't you worried this disclosure will hurt your daughter?" I paused, then answered, "Hurt? Hurt is necessary if it teaches a lesson. I don't want Sophia to see me as a credit card anymore. I want her to understand the value of money, of sacrifice, of gratitude. Sometimes, to save someone, you must let them hit rock bottom." Margaret stepped in, stressing the legality. Every cost is documented, many signed by Sophia herself. Mr. Miller has full legal grounds to sue, but today we only ask that the truth be acknowledged publicly. A murmur rippled through the room. More questions followed, but I had said enough. I closed the briefcase, stared into the camera one last time. They can smear me with words, but these are facts, and truth will always outlast lies. That afternoon, the news erupted. The Chicago Tribune ran the headline, "Father reveals 25 years of raising costs, nearly $800,000. WGN aired clips of me holding the file, voice resolute. Online, photos of invoices and charts spread faster than Sophia's tearful posts. Public opinion began to turn. New comments appeared. Northwestern tuition alone is over $200,000 for 4 years. He's not lying. Almost $800,000 in 25 years? And she says he never sacrificed. Ridiculous. This is a betrayed father. I stand with Mr. Miller. That evening, back in Oak Park, neighbors no longer looked at me with contempt. Mrs. Linda even knocked on my door, placing an apple pie on the table. She whispered, "Robert, I understand now. I'm sorry for judging you." I smiled faintly, feeling a piece of my honor restored. That night, I sat alone in my living room. The phone rang, Sophia's name on the screen. I let it ring. I knew she was panicking because the opinion was turning against her. But I wasn't ready to listen. I wanted her to feel the weight I had carried. Outside, the first snow of the season began to fall, white flakes landing softly on rooftops. I raised my whiskey glass, sipping slowly. A strange warmth filled me. This wasn't the final victory, but at least I was standing tall in public, no longer the beaten man. And I knew, from this moment, Sophia and Ethan would live with the fear that truth could not only shame them, but strip away everything they clung to. 2 days after the press conference, Chicago still buzzed. Local papers ran the story everywhere, from the Tribune to the Business Journal, and even a national news outlet reposted, "Father publishes nearly. $1 million spent raising daughter." The photo of me holding the thick file appeared on television with the caption, "Love or Exploitation." Meanwhile, at the Four Seasons, Sophia and Ethan were cornered. Sophia sat on the floor, eyes swollen from crying, her phone lit with hundreds of messages. Instead of sympathy, she faced questions from friends and old colleagues. "Sophia, is it true your dad paid all of Northwestern tuition? Did you really never cover any expense yourself? That BMW freshman year, was that from your father too?" Sophia's hands shook as she typed, "My father is making things up to get revenge." Don't believe him. But the more she denied, the more it spread. One friend screenshotted her message and posted it on Twitter. Sophia denies, but the invoices are clear. Ethan was different. He paced the room, furious. "You've turned your father into an enemy, Sophia, and now he's turned us into clowns for the entire city. My family keeps calling. They say I married someone dependent on her whole life, now dragging her husband down too." Sophia sobbed. "I didn't think he'd go public. I thought he'd stay silent." Ethan laughed coldly. "That's because you never understood him. A man who built a business with his own sweat. Did you think he'd stay quiet when smeared?" In despair, Sophia decided to strike back. She opened her laptop and began typing a new Facebook post. "Don't be fooled by numbers. My father can show receipts, but he was never a decent father. He controlled me with money and never gave me freedom. If I made mistakes, it was because I grew up in the shadow of his pressure." She attached a few old photos, me pointing at her math homework when she was a child, another of me supervising Sophia at the piano. Just a few ordinary snapshots, but placed under the label of control, they instantly became twisted evidence. The post spread quickly, drawing supportive comments. "That's right. Spending money doesn't make you a good father. What's called sacrifice is sometimes disguised control." Sophia read them, clenched her fists, feeling there was still hope. But within an hour, counter-arguments flooded in. If you were really controlled, why did you accept all the money without protest? $800,000 is no small number. A controlling father who still sent his daughter to study abroad in Italy? You're crying, but you're showing nothing but a few vague pictures. The community began to see the absurdity. Sophia's post, meant to save her reputation, ended up proving her helplessness before the truth. That night, Ethan received a call from his father. 15 minutes, but each one hit like a slap. When he hung up, his face was pale. Sophia asked nervously, "What did they say?" Ethan stared coldly. They want me home immediately. The family refuses to be dragged into this mess. They believe I married a burden." Sophia burst into tears. "No, Ethan, we just got married. You can't leave me now." Ethan gripped the handle of the suitcase, which was already open. His voice was steel. "I told you, Sophia. I didn't marry to commit career suicide. Your father may have pushed us off a cliff, but you're the one who handed him the knife." He wheeled the suitcase out, leaving Sophia collapsed on the sofa, sobbing uncontrollably. Meanwhile, in Oak Park, I sat in front of the screen, reading each new article. Part of me hurt seeing Sophia desperate, clinging to baseless accusations, but another part was calm. I knew public opinion had fully shifted. People no longer believed her staged tears. My phone buzzed. This time it wasn't Sophia. It was a reporter from WGN. They wanted an on-site interview at the construction project I was overseeing. I agreed. Nothing would show people better than that I was not broken, that I was still working as a normal businessman. The next day, the segment aired. On television, viewers saw me in a hard hat, standing at the job site, with excavators and cranes behind me. The reporter asked, "Mr. Miller, do you have a message for your daughter?" I paused, then said, "I will always love her, but love does not mean letting her continue down the wrong path. Sometimes, real love is making your child face consequences." That sentence was clipped, shared everywhere online, and many called it the quote of the year about parental responsibility. Sophia watched from the hotel, her eyes hollow. Ethan was gone. Friends had turned away. Public opinion mocked her. She clutched the phone, called me again, but I didn't answer. She left a message. "Dad, please talk to me. I have no one left." I looked at the message, sighing. My heart felt both bitter and relieved. This was not the end, but clearly Sophia had reached near rock bottom. And I knew. Once a person hits bottom, they either collapse or begin to change. A week after the press conference, the air in Oak Park seemed calmer, but beneath it was still simmering. News of me and Sophia appeared in nearly every paper. The community was divided. Some pitied Sophia, others sided with me. My relatives organized a big gathering, my cousin Edward's birthday party, at the local church hall. Nearly the entire Miller family was there. I came, carrying a slim leather case, knowing today would not be only cake and handshakes. Sophia would come too. I had heard she wanted to explain herself to the family, trying to regain some sympathy. The hall glowed with lights. The smell of roasted meat and coffee filled the air. Voices buzzed with chatter. When I entered, some eyes turned my way. Some nodded, some avoided me. I was used to it. Half an hour later, Sophia appeared, wearing a pale blue dress, makeup carefully done, but unable to hide the dark circles. Ethan was absent. She gripped her purse tightly, stepping toward the main table where Cousin Edward was laughing with relatives. "I just want to say a few words," Sophia began, her voice shaky but force steady. "Everything my father did, exposing me to the press, demanding nearly $1 million, it was wrong. I have been under so much pressure. He wants to control me, for life." The hall fell silent. A few whispers rose. I saw one cousin shake her head. Sophia inhaled deeply and continued. "I don't deny my father spent money, but has anyone thought about how it feels to live under his shadow? Every decision, every step is tied to money. That is not love, that is chains." Some faces looked uncertain. Sophia glanced around, thinking she had regained control. But I knew this was the moment. I stood, opened the leather case. Every eye turned to me. I didn't look at Sophia. I looked at the family. I didn't intend to turn this party into a trial, but since my daughter has raised it, I will show everyone the truth. I laid down brown folders, one by one. Education, transportation, housing, wedding. Then I opened the education file, pulling out original Northwestern tuition invoices stamped in red. "This is $52,000 per year for 4 years. I paid every cent. Here's the bank confirmation. I turned to transportation, pulling out a photo of the BMW X3 Sophia had once flaunted on Instagram, alongside the purchase contract under my name. This is the SUV worth $44,000, which Sophia received at age 25. I signed the check. Each piece of evidence landed on the table like a gavel strike. The hall held its breath. I didn't need many words. The papers spoke for themselves. Sophia's face drained of color, her voice breaking. "Dad, you're doing this in front of the whole family? This is humiliating." I looked at her calmly. Humiliation is not from these papers. Humiliation was when you threw your father out of the wedding he paid for, then went online and called him a villain. If you chose to expose me before the world, then I only did what you began. I made everything public. A wave of murmurs rolled through the hall. Aunt Linda, the eldest cousin, spoke firmly. "Sophia, what you said online is completely different from the documents Robert just laid out. How do you explain that?" Sophia trembled, stammering, her eyes darting, searching for someone to cling to. But Ethan was not there. Neither were her friends. The entire family stared at her, waiting for an answer. At last, Sophia broke down, crying as she collapsed into a chair, burying her face in her hands, sobbing, I just wanted to escape my father's shadow. I never thought it would come to this." No one comforted her. No more sympathetic glances, only cold silence. I closed the last folder, my voice low. I don't want my daughter to suffer, but I will not allow myself to be smeared. If Sophia truly wants to escape me, I give her freedom, complete freedom. No more of my money, no more sponsorship, no more title of a father who pays. From now on, she will take care of her own life. The hall erupted with new murmurs. Many eyes nodded, some whispered, "That's fair." I gathered the papers, leaving behind a heavy silence. As I stepped outside, the night wind of Chicago rushed in, cold but clear. On my shoulders the burden seemed lighter. Sophia still sat there, eyes blurred with tears, surrounded by relatives who no longer defended her. In that moment, she realized her fairy tale had collapsed, not because her father destroyed it, but because the truth had been exposed. Just 3 days after the family gathering, news spread across Chicago. Those who were there did not remain silent. A few videos surfaced, showing me placing invoices and contracts on the table, with Sophia's trembling voice. "Dad, this is humiliating," before she burst into tears. The short clip quickly surpassed 500,000 views, titled, "Daughter Breaks Down as Father Reveals Truth of Nearly $1 million Spent Raising Her." Public opinion no longer sided with Sophia. This time the harsh comments poured straight at her. Humiliation wasn't from him showing documents, but from you denying everything. Has anyone seen Sophia apologize, or does she only know how to cry? Where is Ethan Carter? Why isn't he defending his wife? The last question stung Sophia the most, because Ethan had already left the hotel, staying with his parents in Winnetka. Sophia called, texted, begged, but Ethan replied coldly, "I cannot let my career be dragged down by what you and your father caused. My family wants separation for now." The word separation cut into her like a knife. The media dug deeper. The Business Journal ran the headline, "The Carter Family Faces Reputational Crisis Over Marriage to Sophia Miller." They highlighted Ethan's disappearance from public view, while Sophia struggled under the storm of criticism. Sophia tried emailing her former company in downtown Chicago, a high-end PR firm where she once interned, hoping they might take her back, but the reply came quickly, cold as ice. "We cannot hire under current circumstances. Your public image does not fit our clients." The door to employment slammed shut. Her college friends grew quiet. Those who once traveled with her to Cancun, posting photos with the BMW X3, now avoided her. Her messages showed seen but no reply. Coffee meetups were canceled. The name Sophia Miller now carried too much scandal. Meanwhile, in Oak Park, I continued working as usual. The construction site buzzed with machines. Workers looked at me differently now. Dave, the foreman, clapped me on the shoulder. "Boss, everyone read the papers. They all say you did the right thing. Nobody deserves to be thrown out of their own daughter's wedding." For the first time in months, I felt light. At lunch, I sat outside eating sandwiches with the crew instead of isolating myself in the office. They told family stories, I listened, and I realized this simple bond was worth more than any flowery words at a lavish banquet. Sophia was the opposite. She sank into despair. Bills piled up, hotel charges, credit card statements, unpaid makeup and photography services from the wedding. When she called the vendors, the replies were blunt. "We need cash now. Without your father's guarantee, the contracts are void." Her card was declined at the hotel desk. Sophia was forced to move from the luxury suite to a small standard room. That night, she cried herself hoarse, the image of the radiant bride just a week earlier, now replaced by a lonely woman clutching a suitcase in a cramped room. The Oak Park community shifted too. Mrs. Linda, the neighbor who once shook her head at me, now ran into Sophia at the supermarket and said quietly, "You need to learn to grow up, Sophia." The words were soft, but heavier than a hammer. Sophia went home, shut the door, and sat slumped for hours. I did not laugh at her pain, but I did not reach out either. I remembered Margaret's words. Sometimes not intervening is the best way to teach a child. I let Sophia taste isolation and loss. Only by losing everything could she understand the value of what she once had. That evening I came home to warm light in the living room. I turned on the radio, a soft jazz tune filling the air. With whiskey in hand, I looked at Sarah's photo. I whispered, "Sarah, I think I finally did the right thing. Not to take revenge, but to force our daughter to grow up." Sophia sat in her cheap hotel room, her phone buzzing. A message from an old friend read, "Everyone says you're getting what you deserve, but if you want to change, start by apologizing to your dad. If not, you'll lose everything." Sophia threw the phone on the bed, covering her face with tears. For the first time she felt it. If she wanted to survive, she would have to humble herself, but her pride held her back. She couldn't dial my number yet. I knew the storm wasn't over, but stepping into my backyard, smelling the damp grass in the night air, I felt the first peace in months. Sophia may have lost her reputation, her husband, her community, but I had regained the most precious thing, the right to live with my head held high, no longer treated as a walking wallet. The April wind swept through Chicago streets, carrying the last chill of winter. Sophia sat curled by the window of a small motel room, neon red from the street, casting her face pale. For a week she had been in free fall, like a stone tossed down a bottomless well. The day Ethan left, she still hoped he would come back, but Ethan remained silent. The Carter family never called. Instead, their lawyer sent a cold email. The marriage between Ethan Carter and Sophia Miller must be reconsidered. Please prepare your financial documents for annulment proceedings. Just a few short lines, but enough for Sophia to know. She was no longer the Carter bride, only a burden cast aside. Her credit cards were frozen, her savings account empty. Wedding bills continued to arrive in waves. Vendors sent debt notices, some threatening lawsuits. Sophia tried borrowing from friends, but all refused. Some bluntly said, "Sophia, you've lived too long on someone else's money. It's time to take care of yourself." She tried applying for jobs. A luxury boutique on Michigan Avenue glanced at her resume and smirked. "We fear your image is not a fit." Even the Starbucks near the motel shook its head. "We need barista experience, not a name drowning in bad press." Each closed door made Sophia feel smaller. She wasn't used to failure or rejection. For 28 years she had lived within her father's wallet. Now, stripped of everything, she realized she had no skill except spending money. Friday night, Sophia went out for food. She walked into a brightly lit McDonald's, digging through her wallet for a few crumpled $10 bills. The cashier asked, "Would you like a combo?" Sophia hesitated, then shook her head. "Just one cheeseburger." For the first time in her life, she counted every dollar. Sitting there, she looked around. Young families, students, all laughing easily. And she, the daughter of the man who had just revealed nearly $1 million spent raising her, now couldn't afford a side of fries. Shame seeped into every breath. Late that night, Sophia returned to her motel room. Her phone lit up with a flood of messages from unknown numbers. "Sophia, we require $12,000 for the wedding photography package. This is the second reminder for $8,700 owed to the florist. Without payment, we will pursue legal action. Palmer House Hilton requests the remaining $25,000 for the wedding balance." Sophia's hands shook as she threw the phone onto the bed. Numbers closed in on her, cold as knives. She cried, her sobs echoing in the cheap room. For the first time, she felt utterly alone, with no Ethan, no friends, no Carter family. In despair, Sophia opened her contacts. Her finger hovered over the familiar name, Dad. Her chest tightened. For weeks she had called, texted, but he never answered. She knew that if she didn't try again, she would sink for good. The phone rang once, twice. Sophia almost hung up, but on the fifth ring, the familiar, deep, husky voice came through. "Sophia!" That single word cut her like a blade, making her cry harder. "Dad, I have nothing left. Ethan left me. My friends left me. I have no money, no job, nowhere to go." The other end was silent for a few seconds. Then Robert's voice came, calm as steel. "And what do you want from me?" Sophia sobbed. "I just ask for one chance. I know I was wrong. I threw you out of my wedding. I smeared your name. I was stupid, ungrateful, but now I see. Everything I had came from you. And when it's all gone, I realize I'm nothing." She cried harder, voice broken. "Dad, I'm not asking for money. I'm just asking for a handhold to stand up. I will work, any job. I just need you to believe I can change." Robert sat in the living room, holding the phone. The yellow light carved deep lines across his face. He heard his daughter crying, each word clawing at his chest, but he kept his voice steady. "Sophia, I still love you, but love does not mean saving you from consequences. If you want to stand, I will throw you a rope. Whether you climb or fall is up to you." "Dad, please, any condition I'll accept." Robert paused. "Tomorrow I will transfer $1,000 into your account, just enough to cover the motel and food for 1 week. In those 7 days, you must find work. Any work. Waitress, cashier, cleaning. If after a week you cannot prove you can live on your own earnings, then never call me again." Sophia froze. Tears still flowed, but a tiny spark lit inside her. I promise. I will. I will change." Robert took a deep breath, glancing at Sarah's photo on the table. "Good. I want to see you as a grown woman, not a princess in someone else's castle, but a woman standing on her own feet." The call ended. Sophia buried her face in her hands, sobbing, but in her sobs there was something new. Fear mixed with a fragile hope. For the first time in weeks, she saw a path, however rocky. In the Oak Park house, Robert set the phone down and took a sip of whiskey. He knew the battle wasn't over, but he also knew Sophia had truly hit rock bottom. And only at rock bottom does a person begin to learn how to swim. Monday morning, sunlight pierced the cheap motel curtains, landing on Sophia's weary face. She sat up, her eyes swollen from a sleepless night, but her father's words echoed inside. 7 days. If you cannot prove it, never call me again. Her phone buzzed with a notification. $1,000 deposited. Sophia's hands trembled, staring at the small sum that now felt like treasure. This wasn't money for Prada dresses or Chanel bags. This was the single rope keeping her from the abyss. She put on a wrinkled white shirt, old jeans, tied her hair back, She stepped out into the Chicago streets, filled with honking cars, the smell of Starbucks coffee, and fresh pastries from corner bakeries. For the first time, Sophia was no longer the pampered socialite, but a job seeker with tear-stained eyes. At a small grocery on Halstead, a sign read, "Part-time help wanted." Sophia took a deep breath and pushed the door open. The manager, a Mexican-American woman in her 50s with sharp eyes, looked her up and down. "You don't have sales experience, do you?" Sophia faltered. "No, but I'll learn. I just need a chance." The woman raised her eyebrows, having heard such pleas countless times. But she saw something in Sophia's eyes, a mix of trembling and desperation. After a pause, she said, "Fine. You start today. Simple work. Stock shelves, run the register, wipe the counters. Minimum wage, $15 an hour. No exceptions." Sophia bowed her head. "Thank you. I won't let you down." And so, from a girl once accustomed to five-star hotels, Sophia stood behind a grocery counter, learning to scan barcodes, to smile at ordinary customers, to scrub dirt off tile floors. Each beep of the register reminded her of the violins at her ruined wedding, a distant memory that no longer felt like it belonged to her. Elsewhere, Robert began his own new chapter. He bought back an abandoned warehouse on the edge of Oak Park, once a small woodworking shop of an old friend. He dusted off saw tables, set up shelves, and hung a hand-carved wooden sign, "Miller Woodworks." Not to make big money. He had enough. This was about rediscovering joy in craft, letting his work-worn hands create useful things again. On opening day, a few neighbors visited. Dave, the foreman, brought a bottle of beer, clapping Robert's shoulder. "Mr. Miller, this shop will be a new pride. People will remember you not just as a builder, but as a craftsman." Robert smiled, warmth filling his chest. In the hum of saws and shavings, he thought he heard Sarah whisper, "You found yourself again." Sophia worked late into the night. When the store was empty, she wiped shelves, stacked soda cans neatly. Her hands, once used to holding champagne glasses, were now rough from scrubbing. Exhausted, but for the first time in years, she felt she was truly producing something. That night, she did the math. $15 an hour, 6 hours today, $90. If I work 40 hours a week, that's $600. Enough to cover rent and food. A small sum, but the first money she had ever earned herself. She snapped a photo of her first pay stub and texted Robert, "I got a job. This is proof." Robert read the message in his living room. He looked at the picture of the paycheck, his heart heavy. He didn't reply immediately. He just saved the photo and placed it by Sarah's frame. He knew this was only the beginning, but at least Sophia had taken her first step. On the 5th day, Sophia stood tiredly behind the counter. An elderly customer with silver hair placed a few cartons of milk on the counter. He looked at her and slowly said, "Young lady, I know you. From the papers, from TV. You're the one whose father exposed everything in front of the family, aren't you?" Sophia's face flushed red. Her eyes dropped. But the old man smiled kindly. "Don't be ashamed. Everyone makes mistakes. What matters is fixing them. Your father is brave, and you, if you're truly brave, prove it through work." Sophia nodded with tears in her eyes. When the man left, the tears that fell weren't only from humiliation. For the first time, she saw a faint light in the darkness. By the weekend, Sophia stood at the ATM staring at her balance, $1,587, a meaningless sum for someone who once spent $1,500 on a pair of shoes. But now it made her hands tremble, because it was money she earned herself, money she kept herself. She picked up her phone and sent a message. "Dad, I have lived a week on my own money. I will keep going. I don't ask for more. I just want you to know I've begun to change." Robert sat in his woodshop, afternoon light streaming through the window, wood dust sparkling like glitter. He read the message and smiled faintly. The pain was still there, but something else had taken its place, the first fragile glimmer of belief. Somewhere Sarah would be smiling too. Finally, the seed of responsibility was sprouting in the daughter she left behind. Weeks later, Sophia received a summons from Cook County Court, a joint lawsuit from 3 vendors, hotel, catering, and floral, demanding $50,000. In the small conference room at Richards and Associates, Robert did not pay for his daughter, but he did ask his lawyer to help her. Margaret spoke plainly. You cannot pay it all, but the law allows for a payment plan. With your income, propose $250 a month. They will accept because it's better than nothing. On the day of the hearing, Sophia stood trembling before the judge, admitted the debt, and explained her capacity. The vendor's attorney protested, but in the end, the court approved the installment plan, $250 a month, until it was paid off. When the gavel struck, Sophia exhaled. She understood. Years of repayment ahead, a ruined credit score, and a life of strict budgeting. But for the first time, she carried the weight herself, with no father standing in front. One summer afternoon, Chicago glowed under golden sunlight. People strolled the streets, ice cream in hand, laughter everywhere. In Robert's Oak Park woodshop, the buzz of the saw had ended, replaced by the steady rhythm of a plane smoothing oak. The smell of fresh wood filled the warm, familiar space. Robert wiped his brow and glanced at the sign on the wall. Integrity before profit. The words carved deep, reminding him daily. He knew he had gone full circle, from a father humiliated, to a man doubted by his community, to someone who had reclaimed clear dignity. Outside, a few young apprentices tidied up, their chatter light and carefree. Robert thought he'd end the day with a glass of whiskey and a woodworking book. But then the workshop door creaked open. Sophia stood there. She wore faded jeans and a rolled-up shirt, her hair undone, her face thinner, her eyes stripped of arrogance, now tired and sincere. In her hand was a crumpled paper bag with the logo of the Halstead grocery. Robert set down his tools and looked at her silently. Sophia stepped in, voice trembling. "Dad, I'm sorry. This isn't the first time I've said it, but this time I understand what it means." Robert crossed his arms, quiet. He wanted to listen, but not rush to forgive. Sophia swallowed hard. "I've been working at the grocery store for over a month. I know. $15 an hour is nothing compared to what you spent on me. But every dollar of that wage taught me the value of work. Every soda can I shelved. Every stain I scrubbed. Gave me lessons I never learned in 28 years. She placed the paper bag on the table. Inside was a small, thick envelope. "This is $600. My first month's savings. I know compared to the nearly $1 million you spent on me, it's nothing. But I want to give it back, to prove I've started to change. Not much, but clean money, earned with my own hands." Robert looked at the envelope. He didn't open it, only pushed it back toward her. "You don't owe me money. You owe me gratitude. And that debt is not repaid in dollars, but in how you live from this day forward." Sophia broke down crying. "I know. You gave me chances and I betrayed them. I threw you out of my wedding. I smeared you online. I shamed the one person who loved me unconditionally. I don't ask for forgiveness right away. I just ask to come here every week to help you in the shop. I want to learn the craft. I want to rebuild." Robert's chest ached. He remembered Sarah, remembered her eyes when she cradled baby Sophia. He took a deep breath and nodded. "You may come, but not as the boss's daughter, as an apprentice. You will stand with the other boys, plane wood, carry lumber, learn from zero. No privilege, no exceptions." Sophia wiped her tears and nodded firmly. "I accept." Outside the door, a few apprentices peeked in, whispering. One chuckled. "The boss's daughter wants to be an apprentice. Unheard of." Robert waved them back to work. He knew the road would be long, but at least today his daughter had taken the first right step. Evening fell, golden sunset bathing the timber. Robert sat, Sophia across from him, the unopened envelope between them. Neither spoke much, letting silence settle. Not bitter silence, but one that carried hope. Robert gazed out the window at the pink Chicago sky. He murmured, not sure if to Sophia or to himself, "Dignity once kept is worth more than any number." Sophia looked up, lips trembling, and nodded. In that moment, both understood. The cycle had closed. From light to darkness and back again, not the light of illusions, but the light of truth and responsibility. Outside, apprentices' laughter echoed as they put tools away. Robert listened, a faint smile curling his lips. He realized that true wealth wasn't in a bank balance, but in this small community, in the hands that labored, and in the maturing eyes of his daughter. Life went on. Sophia would pay for her ingratitude with years of debt and hard work. And I, a father, finally found peace again. In my craft, in my community. This story is not just about money or betrayal, but about gratitude and the value of responsibility. If you were in my situation, what would you do? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next story. Thank you, and see you next time.